Welcome to Shift, ACT, SAT, CLT, and college admissions for a changing world. I'm Tyler, the founder of Achievable, and we have an affordable ACT and a CLT course that include everything you need to ace your exam. Full textbooks, a ton of review questions that are backed by a memory-enhancing algorithm, videos on key topics, a built-in study planner, and full-length practice exams. You can get a free trial by going to achievable.me, and if you like it, use the code podcast to get 10% off. Now, let's get started. Today, we've got Hamada Zahawi from Right Track Admissions with us, and I'd love if you could introduce yourself for the people who haven't heard you before.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Thank you for having me back. I am the founder and CEO of Right Track Admissions, a global admissions consulting company that helps graduate and college students applying or applicants applying to colleges and graduate schools throughout the US predominantly, but also in the UK and Canada. And we help students from anywhere in the world applying to schools in those countries. And our focus really is on storytelling, building your profile and really, putting your best foot forward to really highly increase your chances of admission to these top programs.
Fantastic. Yeah, so let's jump right in here. This is about the slash method, or how do you maximize your time in college, right? And so what does slash stand for?
So slash was kind of my way of saying, okay, so now that you've gotten admitted to school, how do you maximize your experience so that you don't sit there looking at me wide-eyed, bushy-tailed in senior year saying, wow, that was a whirlwind. I don't know what I even achieved, and I haven't really paved the path for my career, for my life, for my own personal development. I over-indexed in one area. I didn't do enough in another area. I don't feel. What could I have done differently to really maximize my time at college? And so I thought about it. And actually, it's funny. When I was in college, I already started thinking about these concepts. And out of college, they kind of crystallized into that mnemonic slash. I kind of think about it like slash your way through college in a positive way. But slash stands for social life, leadership, academics, study abroad, and health. And I'm happy to kind of go one by one. I think maybe it's best, Tyler, so that I don't go off for too long. Maybe we'll go one by one, talk a little bit about it, and then go to the next one, and then kind of go from there and see what questions we have as we go through it.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So the social aspect comes back to something that you and I were talking quite a lot about offline, which is what do schools look for in students? And that is both IQ and EQ, right? So let's tag EQ to the first one. Yeah, I don't want to say that there's a order. I think in most cases there's no specific order to that, but I would say somewhat it falls in line. And I can argue all kinds of different ways to say, should we start with academics as being the most important? Should we start with social? Well, let's just play ball and say that this is not in any specific order. EQ really fits into the social element because what you're trying to really build there is you. You're going in at 18, 17 sometimes, and you want to basically develop your own character, your own personality if possible.
Right.
Your strengths, really honing your ability to communicate across differences, your ability to learn from others, your ability to build a tribe, a community, a network. Why? Because reality is one of the most important factors, and I dare say this, Tyler, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I can suspect that this probably was the case with you, like it is with many, many others, is that there are certain professional or personal mechanisms or happenings that came out of your undergraduate experience, whether it was meeting certain friends and making certain decisions in your life. Sometimes people meet their significant others get jobs, social act, all kinds of things really come down for the network and the tribe that you create while you're a student. So it's so important you do not neglect that simply for the sake of your, let's say, academics, or simply for the sake of sports. You really, really want to focus on you as a social creature with emotional intelligence, how you build it up, how you put in those reps, getting yourselves in those circumstances, because you will be discussing them far and wide in job interviews, personal settings, all kinds of things, and
Right.
places and opportunities. So really the social aspect is one not to be underestimated. And I frankly don't think it's underestimated. Tyler, what would you imagine? Most people are probably going to over-index on social. At least Americans are. Maybe internationals are going to be a little bit like more skittish because they're scared. They're in the country. They want to start their academic journey immediately. Maybe American students are like, no, let's have fun from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends a lot on like what school you're going to, what program you're in, your own personal goals. But like you said, if you're maximizing your time at college, I think this is probably first on the list for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I want to say first on the list, as in people just automatically default to it because it's easier, it's funner. But I want to say default on it, but in a way that is constructive and productive. If
Mhm.
you're rushing into a fraternity, think about the fraternity wisely. Just don't think about a fraternity simply because they have the best, keggers or the best,
Right,
social life. Like, they have the best relationship with sororities or something. Like, do it because the people there are good, because they have a good reputation, because you could be able to learn a lot from the experience, right? And you want these guys to be part of your network going forward. If you plan to be involved in some kind of sport, intramural, what have you, do it because you actually love it and because you love the team and things like that. Like, these are important factors. If you join a student organization, do it not simply because maybe it only has a good reputation, but do it because you feel like these people around you are going to be very, very important parts of your life, and will
right.
continue to do so, and you're passionate by what you do. um, Let me add a quick thing here, because a lot of people ask me, what are the extracurriculars that you should take in college to really give yourself the best foot forward to improve your experience, and that maybe graduate schools or jobs would like that experience. And this piece of advice applies for those in high school applying to college and those people in college looking to make, to carve their career path and their life path, is pick one or two, maximum three activities to be part of in a given year.
Mhm.
And as they say, the old axiom, focus on these activities a mile deep and an inch wide.
Right. Yeah,
Don't
I mean,
don't just
it's
kind of go
definitely
in there.
like
Mhm.
I think there's such a temptation, especially because, this whole sort of college, explore yourself, like find out what you like. Like there's this temptation to like join 20 clubs.
Yeah,
But the truth is that at least from the what you're going to get back from it perspective, particularly on your resume, you're a lot better off being the president of one or two clubs than you are being a member of 20. And certainly you don't have to like start that way. You can work your way to that goal and
yeah,
like narrow down what you're working on. But
yeah.
it's important, I think, just if you're trying to maximize your time in college, to know that that is your end goal, and it's not just to be a casual, low effort participant in
Yeah.
lots of things that don't really matter.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think you want to kind of get a sampling in their first. You'll see this when you get to college. They have a certain promenade, so to speak, where all the student clubs are on either side of like the promenade, and they got like their little tables, and they're handing out flyers, and maybe now they're scanning QR codes. God knows what they're doing now. But the reality is, you are talking to them, getting to know them, and then figuring out what you want to be involved in. So maybe your first one or two quarters or semesters, you're just kind of tasting a lot of different things and seeing what's on the menu, and then really selecting the final entree and so forth. So I do say think about social from a variety of aspects. It's about the sports, it's about the student clubs, it's about the people that you're meeting, and really in the end of the day, where you find your other opportunity to develop yourself as a person. Those key core qualities that give you that emotional intelligence. So also don't be surrounded by a bunch of sycophants, right? You don't want to be
Yeah,
surrounded by people that are just going to be yes people, but people that will push back at you, challenge you, develop you, help you. So that you create kind of like what they call brain trust, of people that you can always rely on to talk through certain things. It's good for mental health, which we'll talk about, but it's also good for just kind of, as I said, personal development. So that's the social piece.
yeah, yeah, great. Well, so yeah,
And
let's
then,
keep going down the list.
so leadership is the second one. It's part
Right.
of
And I
social.
touched on it a little bit, right? Like, yeah,
Exactly. We did, exactly, because part of it goes down to that one, that inch wide and a mile deep. Because what you want to do is eventually by sophomore year, maximum junior year, you want to have found your calling, found the group that you really want to lead, if you kind of, talking about that from a leadership perspective, and lean into it with the goal of impact. What I mean by impact is not necessarily that you have to move the needle significantly, but I'll give you a small example. I was part of an identity group just after September 11th. And part of what our mandate, kind of what we wanted to do is dispel certain stereotypes about people from this region. And the reality was, when we started, I still remember, if there's a KPI, the KPI was we had very low attendance, very low number of members, and very little funding. And by the time I completed the year as president of that club, thank God I was able to increase the number with the team, increase the number of participants from I don't even know, 5 or 10 for each event to 30, 40. The number of members, reoccurring members, increased significantly, at least 3x during that year. And we went from $450 in funding when I took over to $5,000 by the time I left.
Wow.
Those are, again, small numbers that are trivial, or, comparatively speaking, who knows what you can achieve in other places. But for us, it just showed that we had moved the needle. And most importantly for me is that I left in the hands of a new generation of people that continued that club for at least a significant number of years thereafter. Same in law school. I joined a journal. I was a member, and then I moved up to a board member, and then I became the editor-in-chief of that journal. We had very low participation, very little funding, and we had no issue, not a single issue that we published. And so by the end, I gave ourselves a KPI that we had to publish an issue, increase membership, and get funding. So we matched the same kind of funding that we had. We increased membership, and I say membership, again, reoccurring membership, of people going to meetings consistently and being part of the organization. And we published our first issue that year. It was 150, 200 pages. And that journal, I believe, exists till today. And that was 15 years ago at law school in Berkeley. So you want to join, you want to gain leadership, you want to go through the crucible moments, because that gave me the confidence. Again, I speak from personal experience and opinion.
Right.
These anecdotes, it gave me the confidence from undergrad to law school to graduate school to work situations, leading my company right now, Right Track Admissions, and doing a number of different things as a leader and leaving that reputation, Tyler. When people would see me years later, they'd be like, oh yeah, Hamada, I remember when you led that organization, you did this and you moved the needle here and you did that. And that was important to me because it just gives you that confidence, which is what you want from college, is to be confident, because the real world is drastically different from college. College is a Petri dish. It just gives you a small snippet. You've got massive guardrails. Your job is to enter, do your classes, get a degree. Your real task is how do you improve as a human being to give you the confidence that when those guardrails are removed and the world is your oyster, you succeed.
Right.
And that leadership is very, very crucial for that component.
Well, and it's not only crucial for yourself to be that way, but also, like you said, for others to see you that way, right?
Yeah.
Because what do businesses want? At the end of the day, leadership is not just sort of a buzzword that businesses like to see. It's kind of a proxy for the fact that you, number one, can manage people, which not everybody can, and that's something that arguably a job would want you to grow into, and you would want to grow into within that job. And second, it's a proxy for, okay, we need to do X. How do we do that? I'm going to figure it out. There are a lot of people in the corporate world that just, you have to give them things to do, and you can't give them sort of just hey, the objective is this, go find out how to do it. You need to give them the steps, right? And I mean, there is a big difference between those kind of people and the people that you can just trust to go figure it out and do a good job. And so that's what leadership shows, I think.
Yeah, and you know what? To your exact point, having those experiences allowed me to write about it when I applied to law school. It allowed me to write about it when I applied for scholarships. It allowed me to talk about it when I applied for jobs and in interviews.
Totally.
Right? It gives you fodder to talk about experiences, happenings when you gain that leadership. And it's not something that comes easy. I mean, everybody's going to be vying for it, especially if you go to a top school. Everybody feels that they have the potential to be a leader. And being a leader is not just you standing as the tip of the spear, but also elevating other people to take on leadership and to take on responsibilities as well.
Right. Yeah. No, that's all great.
The second one is very straightforward, right? Academics.
Obviously,
well, third one, excuse me. Third one is to say academics, right? Because that's one that will obviously is why people go to school, and it's mission critical. Because again, what does it do? It teaches you discipline, teaches you core skills, and it teaches you a sense of accountability, time management,
right?
And it gives you confidence. So you see, I haven't even mentioned substance. There's few subjects I really truly believe that out of college you're going to remember, or classes that you're going to remember, or classes that you need to know to go into the job world 5, 10, 15 years afterwards. Very rare. Right. What you want to do is basically focus on your academics so that you have a sense of accountability. And the better your grades, the higher accountability you have, that companies will look at and say, okay, this person actually has a sense of responsibility. They focus. When you take on tougher classes, when you have a very impacted schedule, they see that. And if you see success in it, that's something that the job market will be like, wow, this person can take on a huge load and succeed. Those people that balance sports, also balancing professional pursuits, like if they have to work to pay for their education or for their lives. Again, if you're able to succeed in those, you see that a lot with valedictorians. Valedictorians are not just people that are academically top of their class. Yeah, that's a plus. That's a given. That's almost a baseline. But it's those people that got the great grades and volunteered and played sports, and or played sports. So those are all different factors that come into the academics. So there's a sense of accountability, sense of responsibility, sense of time management, a sense of discipline, which is all what these classes and doing well in school showcases. And it plays obviously into your IQ because you build up those certain skills that allow you to kind of hit the ground running. Keep in mind, Tyler, that AI is disrupting and upending a lot. So doing those small repetitive tasks that you think you're going to succeed at in the job market as soon as you graduate is not necessarily going to give you that extra edge. It's the EQ that's going to give you the edge. It's going to give, you have to focus on classes that give you a sense of relevance. I say this, and I'm going to keep saying it until I'm proven otherwise, that two of the core areas that I really think students should focus on, take classes in, is psychology and communication in whatever discipline, whatever major. If you're doing pre-med, if you're doing engineering, if you're doing accounting, if you're doing the humanities, psychology, taking one, like I remember at Santa Barbara where I started at UCSB before I transferred to UCLA. Santa Barbara, I think Psych 1 or whatever it was called, was one of the most taken courses at school. And it was a whole plethora of different majors would take it. I remember they would have like 600 students in that class. It was heavily impacted. And that's important, Tyler. You know this because as a CEO of a company, you're constantly negotiating. You're trying to understand the psychology of the person across the table from you. You are constantly thinking about what you can, like the behavioral patterns of people for your business, for how you talk to people, even on a personal note, when you talk to, a significant other or you're talking to friends. Psychology is critically important. And that's something that we hope we can still have some kind of leg up on AI. And the communications piece is critical. Take a class in debate, take a class in public speaking.
AI can't do, like maybe someday it'll be able to do it, but like for now, AI cannot do humans as well as humans can.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised. You know what's bananas? Tyler? There's a lot of people are using ChatGPT as their quote unquote therapist.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild because a lot of therapists, there's a dearth of therapists out there, access to it, they're expensive. So now you basically are training the LLM through your repetitive questions that they have memory expertise in to basically handle your things. Or how are you feeling today? Oh, tell me more about X. Or you're feeling Y. Or I remember you mentioned that friend from 6 conversations ago. What's your relationship with them now? Oh, this happened. Oh, talk to me more, right? So
Right.
there is that element in there. It's happening. But still, we can't overcorrect on AI and be so dependent on them. You have to develop your own psychological skills. And I'll tell you, the two, I would say, most popular courses at the Harvard Kennedy School, the most popular course is called Adaptive Leadership.
Mhm.
The second most popular course was Negotiations, by far.
Yep.
So you can imagine again, it's a policy school. I get it. But still, it is some of the most oversubscribed classes. So I do say focus on comms, public speaking, creative writing, debate, not focus on, but at least take 1 or 2 classes, especially if you're in the sciences and that's not your area of kind of going into, you're going to have to learn how to communicate very effectively. Because again, that we can beat AI on. Because in the
Right.
end of the day, do you know, Tyler, that most universities are using Kira as a mechanism to basically ask impromptu questions in interviews on camera? You
Mhm.
get on camera, they give you 1 minute to prep, they give you a question, and you got to respond. Why? Because we almost are losing track of how many people are writing their essays. How many people are really, truly have a good command of English if they're in an American school or British school or Canadian school and so forth. So they're
Right.
using these mechanisms to catch people off guard to see how quick they can think off their feet. If you can't communicate effectively, you're going to get caught doing that. So that's the academics piece, and there's a lot of different things you should be thinking about: research, writing, publishing, um,
Right.
and this is the best part of America is the GEs. I love them because I remember in school. You probably can come up with a couple of random ones. Maybe give me your top 3 most random classes you took as GEs in college, if you can remember.
I think it's also, I mean, you touched on it a little bit. I think it's a nice segue into the next topic. You know, academics doesn't just mean crushing your major. It means this is your last chance. I mean, obviously there's like open courseware and whatever, but like realistically, this is your last chance to get dedicated, like university quality classes on whatever you want. I mean, to an extent, like maybe they don't have classes on everything that you want to learn, but things like negotiations, like, do you know how hard it is to find a Harvard level negotiations class out in the world and how expensive that is? It's pretty hard and pretty expensive. So you can just go take that class, right? Like, and that's the kind of thing that I think is really important with AI coming down the pipe because essentially, um, like critical thinking skills and the ability to kind of adapt to what is coming up are going to be a lot more important even than specific domain knowledge after a certain point, right? Um, and then that all kind of segues nicely into your second S, which is study abroad, where, experiences and kind of unlocking new ways to think about things are really important.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever study abroad?
Um, I don't know. The answer is no. I went abroad a fair amount, but I
Yeah.
never studied abroad.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like a back way of doing it as well, as is obviously through travel and so forth. But let's just say you don't have that opportunity to travel as a student or shortly thereafter or before. Studying abroad is a great opportunity to do that because you can get a funded opportunity to study in a foreign country. I tend to tell people to study in a country where they don't know the language so that they can also pick up a new language, which is always a massively important skill. But studying abroad to me is putting yourself in discomfort. Again, it's an EQ and also the AQ aspect, which is adaptability, because you've got to basically figure out how you're going to succeed in a foreign country. If you're a foreign student in America, it's still worthwhile to do that because you came from one country, you should go to a completely different one. I went to Spain. Maybe it was low hanging fruit, but I didn't speak a lick of Spanish.
Right.
I stayed with a family for a semester, or actually a quarter, excuse me, and it was incredibly eye opening. I learned enough Spanish where I've probably been to 80 to 90% of the Spanish speaking world thereafter, because I loved Spanish so much and I loved the culture. and obviously it's not a monolithic culture, but again, you learn to adapt and learn about different cultures within that realm. And the languages is absolutely beautiful. I live in California also, so I hear it quite often.
Right.
Um, but you know, it forces you to adapt, to create new networks, to create strong bonds with people that are like you are also adapting to this new culture, and so it creates stronger bonds. So when I was at Harvard, I did I didn't study abroad, but I did student treks, which probably is a little more akin to what you were saying, where you kind of studied where you kind of went abroad. And these student treks are like a week or two long. And I went to Bhutan, Nigeria,
Wow.
Pakistan, Greece, to volunteer out there during the Syrian refugee crisis, just a lot of different places. And when you're out there, you're learning from other people. You're in these difficult environments. And I think that is so, so, so critical and gives you a great opportunity to talk to different people in interviews, talk to people and build friendships that are so important. So you don't have to go for a whole year, go for a semester, go for a summer, go for a week, go volunteer abroad. But it is something that is undeniably critical to your adaptability quantum, which is becoming more and more important, and something that AI is going to try to replicate through some kind of rehearsed average experience of of a group of people giving their opinions, and tries to give you an average experience that may or may not exist. But it's mission critical. And for me, it opened my eyes to the world in many ways. And then since then, I've probably traveled to over 100 plus countries since that study abroad experience in college, because I loved that experience. I love traveling. I love learning from different international environments. And just opened my eyes to it. So I actually said, you know what? I'm going to double down and make that one of the pillars of success in college and maximizing your experience is studying abroad.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's basically something you'd like never forget, right? Like, and again, like, just in the same way that in college you were only going to have opportunity to take like a negotiations class from a Harvard professor while you're at Harvard, you're also really only going to have the opportunity to go live somewhere else for 3 to 6 months, or and not have to pay for it and not have to worry about like being between jobs or
Yes.
whatever, like during
Yes.
this time. This is the only time you can
Exactly.
do it.
Exactly. You don't feel that kind of impact and that pinch, like, oh, I should be working. No, you're there to learn and to really soak up the experience. When I was in Spain, I studied Spanish art and architecture, Spanish Civil War, Spanish language. Um, Incredibly immersive. When I studied in England and did my master's in Cambridge, I did international economics, international law, European foreign policy and security. So I did a bunch of things just to kind of get that complete overall experience studying abroad. Um, Last but not least is a one that's very important. I think excuse me, not the only time, obviously, but the first time I ever went to a therapist was in college. In my final year, I felt there was a lot of pressure on me, a lot of pressure to get a job, a lot of pressure to figure out the next path, a sense of the anticlimactic nature of graduation looming and what's the next day look like. Um, so it really impacted me, and so I sought I sought therapy on campus, and it was great because it kind of got rid of that taboo, and it made me feel like I was supported, I was heard, and I think that kind of opened that perspective for me and created that sense of empathy, Tyler, which is so important. That mental health aspect and focus on your mental health and your physical health, which is what that last H from Slash is so important because if you're
Yeah.
physically fit and you take care of yourself and you respect your body, and you sleep right and you eat right, it really has a reverberating impact in terms of your level of productivity, your ability to get along with other people, your ability to kind of maximize your the hours during the day. Whereas if you just are a hot mess and stumbling through college, you really will miss out on invaluable experiences. So
Well,
physical
and
health
it's
is
also
critical.
like I frankly think that basically the biggest barrier to my health, my physical health being what I want it to be, is time, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I work out 3 times a week, but it would certainly be better if I worked out 5 times a week, or
sure,
if I did a lot more cardio, which is very time consuming, right? Like,
sure,
but it's, I don't have 3 hours a day.
right.
You in college, realistically, a lot of the time you have 2 to 3 hours a day you could spend on this, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's just like you don't have to do that, but it's just an opportunity that you don't have necessarily after that.
Right, and that could be, you could lump that into the social aspect. So I remember I learned racquetball when I was in college, because everybody would just go to the gym and be like, "Hey, let's go pick up a racket and start playing racquetball." Like, there's different things to stay energized, to stay healthy, and also to socialize. And the reality is, Tyler, you build habits, atomic habits, small incremental habits. If you start walking and start doing 10,000 steps in college, if you start eating right and avoiding junk food and avoiding processed food and avoiding sugar, these
Hmm.
are things that become inculcated in your daily behaviors. I'm well beyond college now in terms of age. I'm double almost the age. Actually, I am exactly double the age of when I graduate at this point. And a lot of the habits I developed in college, I carry on today. Health, working out, doing your steps, sleeping right. These are all very, very important to me, that I developed those habits in college. And again, the mental health is critical. Again, it comes down to the social aspect, which is that you develop a tribe, a group of people that kind of help you out, that are there for you, because you are going to face crucible moments in college. Failed
Hmm.
exams, failed relationships, extraneous factors, family factors, a million things are going to hit you in college. And you want to have a group that can support you through that and not be completely alone, because it can be very daunting. And you want that group to kind of carry with you, and a strong sense of mental health, whether it's you're meditating, whether you're breathing techniques, sleeping right, and having a support network is so, so, so fundamentally important. If you don't take care of your health, Tyler, everything else I just said, write it off. It's over.
Hmm.
This is not even worth talking about your social, your leadership, or your academics, or studying abroad. If your health fails, all of those fail, which is why I kind of left it to the end as a foundation for the rest of for those other issues, other topic points.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, I really like I really like this flash method, and I definitely think this is good advice for maximizing your time in college. Before we wrap up, anything else? Because I think we're almost at time here.
No, I think I basically spelled all this out in our college admissions mastery guide. It's like the penultimate chapter to the guide, where we really kind of focused on each one of these, and I gave my own life experiences and how that kind of played out, and gave also some anecdotes to other people that benefited from this 5 part, kind of 5 buckets, 5 pillars to think about. So I'll share that with you, so that you can share it with the audience, and hopefully folks can benefit from reading that chapter as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. This has been Shift, a college admissions podcast for a changing world, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Hamada Zahawi from Right Track Admissions. You can get a free trial of Achievable's ACT and CLT courses by going to achievable.me and use the code podcast to get 10% off.